school.
Someone called me and she said, she's looking for a psychologist for her child. And I said, I'm actually a psychiatrist first and the psychologist. Our kids is not that serious. I'm like, yeah, for you to have called.
It is.
Means that you identify that you need
There's a problem.
Yeah,
We've had an interesting conversation
yes, we have.
with Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri about mental health as a general concept. But now we want to drill down to some specific issues that we see in marriage. I mean, we saw it in ours and we've seen it in a couple of other marriages. And I think for me, one would be conflict.
Yes, and I think for me would be trust.
Yes, trust. So conflict and trust.
Yes.
So, hi again, doctor.
Hello.
So, how to jump off on this?
So for me, let me say the trust part. I think at some point in time when we first got together, I had this wall that I was like, in marriage, someone will always mess up. So to guard myself from future mess up, you understand? Let me just have this barrier that will protect me. And he noticed it, like, you'll be like, oh, because now I'm looking back when you say, you're not, I don't know all of you. What more do you want to know?
Yeah,
you understand? You used
what
to say
is
that.
it?
What
What do you
is
want
it?
to
What
know?
do you want to
Should I have my
have?
shit?
What again, And then, we would come up with different scenarios. Okay, what is your greatest fear? And I'm like, I said, you know what? Even if you cheat, that might not be my issue. The issue I will have is that I've protected myself. You are not trying to break this wall that I've built. Leave me in this my space so that in case it happens, I'm kind of like prepared for it. And I was like, oh no, that's a very bad mentality to have, So it would always chip at the walls, and and then eventually I lose guard, So, and then I think at one point when I said, okay, what if I now find out, not that I've lost guard now, and then I now hear that he has cheated, and I said, it's not the cheating that will pay me. It's the fact that I messed up because I had my plan in place, and then I trusted you. So I think at the point I was like, oh no, I want to know if it happens. Tell me. Then I think some life situations, and I say, you know what? I don't even think I want to know, because I don't think I'll be able to deal with it. Now, so that's because we have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Now, so for other couples that have trust issues, how can you deal with it?
Right. So, it takes me back in time to one psychological theory, which says that the concept of trust or mistrust is one that you form as a child between the ages of 0 and 18 months, when all that a child requires is for you to feed them, keep them warm. When they cry, pick them up, ensure that they're not soiled or wet. The constancy with which we do those things for children. If a child is, hungry, you feed, tending to them as at when due. As compared with a child that is left to cry for hours, left in diaper for hours. If you do all of those things, the child is likely to come up with a trusting attitude. However, if there's inconsistency, today it's there, tomorrow it's not there, today it's this person, tomorrow it's this person, then it's the next person who is shouting at the child is likely to grow up being distrustful of not just the people in the environment, the attachment figures, but the world as a whole. So you see, many of these things are foundational issues which did not just start. And so as individuals also grow, at different ages, there are things that we, achieve or attain. For instance, at the age of 6, between 6 and 11, you expect that an individual will grow up with their self-esteem. If there's certain things that poke at it, where the child is made to feel unsure of themselves, they see the world as, nobody really loves me, nobody wants me, I'm nobody, I am, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough. Self-esteem does not form as it should form. So many of the things that we see as adults, previously, as we previously had said, don't just appear. They're not just preconceived ideas, notions, or thoughts that you just picked up from somewhere. It's a function of nature and nurture. So again, it's an interplay of nature and nurture. One, How was I tended to? How did I grow up? What kind of environment did I grow up in? Was it a traumatic environment? How did I see my mother treat my father? How did I see my father treat my mother? And then, of course, it's reinforced largely by the environment. So, generally, experiences you've seen, your experiences, other people's experiences, how you've been treated by different people. And so, for instance, you'd hear the general conversation like, oh, men are scum, all men cheat, every woman always has a backup boyfriend. Those are preconceived ideas.
You just said that backup boyfriend.
Everybody, people have a lot of preconceived ideas.
Yes, because that's what I call it. It's true. Because
so
you said, oh my
But
God.
then, like, maybe that's my trauma response.
Yeah. So, people have all this, and I call them warped mindsets, largely because, you are in a pool of the world. And you're also, the world that you see is a reflection of who you are, where you've been, the people you've grown up around. Yeah, so beyond all of this interplay is also the fact that quite a number of parents have consciously and unconsciously handed down beliefs
Biases.
to their children. Biases, yes. Misperceptions, which sometimes they may have seen in their parents' marriages, but sometimes all that the parents have to say is, when you grow up, don't trust the man, don't use God.
Don't tell the woman how much you make.
Don't exactly. Say, Jawa, Jawsi, always guide. So I think that influence from parents to, it goes a long way to what the young girl or the young lady would believe. Marriages should be individualized. If you ask me, why marry someone you don't trust? Why go into a relationship? The biblical principle will tell you it's naked but not ashamed. It's being able to come as you are, to love this individual, to give your all, to trust, and that even when mistakes happen, you will forgive. If, of course, you're not enabling or encouraging the other person to be irresponsible or to just do what
they feel like they should.
Yeah, but it's love, it's trust. It's about openness. It's about honesty. And I think that, when people see themselves for who they are, they would be able to understand. I understand that quite a number of times, people have walls all around them. Some of those walls, again, trauma. Sometimes it's experience. Sometimes it's because of relationships that you've been in and because you've been treated a particular way. Or something that you've seen in other people's relationships that makes you say, you know what, I'm going to have a big distrust.
And I don't want this to happen to me.
Yeah, I don't want this to happen to me. And I think that, this defense that I have put in place, and you keep shifting the goalpost yourself. So sometimes you say, oh, it's not the cheating. It's not that bad. Well, then if he cheats, then I'll blame myself then.
Yeah.
I think that, again, it's personalized, but it also depends on your motivation and your motive for your marriage. Marriages can work.
Yes.
But marriages take work.
So, if you don't trust someone, don't get into it. I'm such an advocate for that. But what happens when you're in it and then this person has broken your trust? Or how do you rebuild the trust? How do you get back to that point where you can trust again?
Also, it can be tough. And some people never get to that point. I remember, many years ago, I saw a young couple and the guy had broken the trust. And interestingly, it's both ways sometimes. Where, it was the man who was unfaithful, it was the woman who was unfaithful. But I found this one quite interesting because it was the young man who came forward to say that I need support because, and I kept, why? Why have you come? Is it because you got caught? Or you say, I'm sorry, I got caught. Is it because you got caught or because you genuinely want to bring this thing? And he said, I genuinely love her. I'm sorry for everything that I've done. I wasn't careless or anything about it. It was because some needs that I had weren't being met. But now I want to build my home. And the woman was
not having it.
Was not having it. Lying.
Just kept pushing and, shifting the goalposts. For her, it had ended. So yes, there are situations where you have,
trust broken.
You've trusted, but your trust has been broken. Again, it comes back to the individual. Are you someone who is willing to forgive? It's painful because no matter how you imagine it, no matter how many excuses you give for the other person, which is why I like, the chemistry between both of you. You have tough conversations. And sometimes, a lot of people don't have these tough conversations, including, if I died, would you remarry?
Yeah.
If this happened to me, would you do this? If you found out I cheated, what would you
What
do?
would you do?
Some people have never had conversations like this because in their minds they're living in a fairy tale, oh, we're virgins when we got married, or I was a virgin, so I
Virgin
expect that he would,
remain
live by
like
the
this,
rule
yes.
book and he would do everything. He would be a good father, he would be a good husband. Unfortunately, when reality doesn't match expectations, that's when distress starts to happen. So for me, I would encourage people to be realistic. Issues can happen. If and when they do happen, be willing to open your mind. Be willing to see this individual beyond the mistake that they have made. But I also think that the degree of healing that a man or woman would be willing to give to their partner will also depend on how the partner, whether or not the partner is remorseful.
Okay.
Because if you've been caught and you're like,
Yeah, they don't catch
it's
you
not new now. Everybody's doing it. And maybe you go report him to his parents and they're like, oh, you think it was only made for you? Which are conversations that I've heard. It's painful. So
or you hear that, oh, his father also did it to me.
his father
and I'm
also
still
did it
here.
to me. And if you want to go, just go. So beyond, the individual who has been cheated or, who has been taken for granted is also the stance of the other person. The person who has gone ahead to hurt them. Are they truly sorry? Are they remorseful? Are they looking at building a better relationship? Or is it just a part of their own lives and they just want to keep living life like that? Each context will also go to a large extent to determine whether or not, the individual will forgive, whether or not that marriage will stand the test of time. Some people they don't mind, they'll sit down there. They say, he's paying school fees. He's buying this, he's buying that. We'll go off him. I'll take the abuse. Again, trauma response. If all that you've ever known in your life was abuse, even when you see it, even when you can taste it, even when you can hear it, you just tell yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And they'll tell me somebody else had some people are able to,
cope. They can use comparison.
Yeah.
It shall not beat him.
Unfortunately. They suffer. Many times they don't know that they suffer.
Yeah.
But they suffer and they struggle with many things, which may not be apparent to everyone. But you see, at the end of the day, like I always say, cases should be individualized.
Yes.
People should look at what their own unique challenges are. But they should also look out for partners. You see, there's something I always say, partners who are kind. Kindness, sometimes people will say, is it kindness or love? Is it love? You need someone who is kind, who sees you, who hears you, and who genuinely loves you, who puts you above everything else. It would show. It would show in how they speak to you. It would show in how they treat you. It would show in how they, come up with ideas. You need a partner that is kind.
Wow.
There's something you touched on briefly about the guy who said he had some unmet needs. So I know it's probably a controversial way to look at it, but I really want to know. So if your partner's not meeting your needs and you have repeatedly said you're not meeting this need and the person still isn't meeting the need, and then you have that need met outside, whether it's sexual, whether it's
emotional,
whether it's financial, whatever, are you to blame?
That's a really
that's deep.
That's deep.
And it's not a yes or a no.
Okay.
What I'll tell you is we all have needs.
Yes.
And so the one who is who is vocalizing about their needs, it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't also have unmet needs that they're not, chanting and shouting about. However, it's a journey that requires that both parties are understanding enough to say that, beyond myself, there's also this other person that I've pulled into this union. And that this person also needs to be met. I'll be honest with you, there's no marriage that is 100%. Yes. There's no foolproof marriage. Yes. And so every once in a while, we all struggle, we have fights, However, if you know my own needs and I know your needs, I think that the most important thing that you can do is try to meet them. In a city like Lagos, quite a number of couples don't have as much sex as they should be having. Apparently. Largely because one, you spend long hours in traffic. 2, you are genuinely stressed from the pressure of work. 3, you may even have a medical condition that is, has dropped your libido. Yeah. You might be on drugs. You might be struggling with, different things. However, there are also other ways to meet sexual intimacy that is not necessarily sex or intercourse. Yeah. And so hold me, my love languages, again, you know, is it touch? Is it words of affirmation? Is it acts of service? Whatever, is it quality time? Whatever it is, meet it.
Okay.
But don't dismiss my needs. Quite a number of people struggle, and you know, I've heard this, I've seen it play out, especially, for instance, when a woman is pregnant, and maybe the doctor has said for the next couple of months, don't touch her. It's not her fault. It's a medical condition that has caused it.
There's nothing she can do about it.
She has a baby, and she goes into postpartum depression. Again, it's not her fault.
It's not something she can control.
It's not something she can control. Or a man loses his job, and once a man loses his job, his ego is so deflated. And you keep saying, every time I touch him, he doesn't rise up to the occasion. He can't rise up to the occasion.
Him not rising up to the occasion is even adding to it.
Exactly.
Because the performance problem now happens.
And everything, you know, struggles in the other room. Of course, there are other needs, financial needs, you know, spiritual needs and all of that. But I think that when people start realizing that, oh, when I wanted to get married, I thought that I would be checklist this, checklist that, checklist. And your checklist is not checking. I think that one of the important things that you can do is, again, is to go to therapy. The therapist will also help you find out what the underlying drivers of your needs are. So, for instance, this young man clearly was abused as a child. Again, while that is not an excuse, it's also something that is valid and should be looked into. He should have seen a therapist, but nobody ever thought he should see a therapist. Nobody even knew or address it. And so,
just sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, just sweep it under the carpet. And so, behavioral therapists will be able to help you find out what the drivers are. What are the issues? What are some of the things that may have contributed to this? How can I make this person understand that this is an important need for their partner? How can they meet it? Or how best can they meet in the middle? Or are there other things, you know, that they can do for each other? Maybe spend time with each other to address, you know, all of these needs. So again, we all have needs, but we must see our needs as important. And if we're not getting, you know, the benefits, perhaps seek a therapist who would be able to help you, you know, look at things.
Fantastic. Then, so that's dealing with trust. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but we don't have all the time in the world. How about when it comes to conflict? Because that's another big issue. Some
couples play dirty.
Yeah, not the fact that you're having conflict, because you will have conflict. It's how to manage conflict, how to fight fair. Like how do couples arm themselves with the information, the knowledge, the tools, the skills, whatever, to be able to fight fair? How do you even recognize when you're not fighting fair?
Okay, so conflict, like you said, is healthy. It's a normal part of it. In fact, if you're not fighting, check yourself.
Tell my children.
If you're not, you know, having maybe arguments, if you argue all the time, it might just be both of you fawning and just wanting to, you know, walk on eggshells and make everyone happy. And so conflict would arise, sometimes for the biggest reason, sometimes for the flimsiest of reasons. And so I've heard people say that, oh, he pressed the toothpaste in the middle, he should have pressed the toothpaste at the end.
I've heard that thing. I've heard a couple that got divorced because of that.
Well, it happens. Wow. Or you put your shoes here when you should have put your shoes here. Or you, again, all of those things didn't start in adulthood. They were unchecked and they, you know, lingered into the marriage. So conflict will happen.
Yes.
And when conflict happens is, number one, be able to identify conflict. Is everything okay? So for instance, if I wake up this morning and like I said to my husband, I'm not talking to you because you did this. It's most likely because there's something that happened that we haven't resolved. And until the other party is able to also understand that things are not, you know, quite the same between both of us. So first of all, be able to identify that there's even conflict. For some people, it's already a way of life. You talk to me, I don't care.
You don't talk to me,
I don't care.
For some people, it's avoidance.
Yes.
They just won't. What's wrong with it?
Nothing.
Well,
what's wrong with nothing?
Well, so again, people must know that it's a form of emotional abuse. Because some people have continued to use this. So I remember seeing a girl many years ago, she was married, and she told me, she said, sometimes for a month, they're in the same house, no children, no one, he will not speak to her, he will not eat what she cooks, he will not. And then after a while, it will just flip her, as if nothing happened.
And they become
loving. And become loving, and then life pretty much goes on. So for instance, first of all, identify that, well, there's conflict, and this is the result of the conflict. Number two, identify what are the issues of conflict for you. For some people, it's poor communication issues. When are we going to do this? And the husband replies, I don't know.
No.
And then all of a sudden, the husband wakes up one day and says, so we're doing this now. But what happened
why
to
did
all
you
the, I've
do
been
that
asking
with
you
you?
today, tomorrow, again?
And you could have told me so
You
I
could have
could
told
prepare.
me. Women are more emotional, men are more logical. But what we need people to be is to be wise.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. So that you don't let your emotional, part take over, and you don't let your logical
part.
mind also
Not
take over.
understand.
Yeah, so again, meet in the middle. So for instance, understand what the drivers of your conflict are, especially the recurrent drivers of conflict. Is it communication issues? Is it financial issues? Is it sexual issues? Is it issues around parenting the children? Is it issues about whether or not you want third parties
Involved
in your marriage? So again, understand what is driving your conflict. When you've eventually understood what is driving your conflict, another thing, of course, you need to do is check your reaction to the conflict. Some people have exaggerated responses, again, because the responses or what they're seeing is reminiscent of a traumatic experience that they've gone through and that they haven't resolved. So, for instance, some people, once you do something little for them, they feel like you're taking them for granted. And while what that individual has done in that moment may not be so big, you're like, but all I did is I moved this for, yeah, but you could have told me, I would have told. So, so again, be sure that, your response is not hyper exaggerated or not blown out of context with what is going on. Of course, also be sure that the drivers of your conflict, what's sustaining it, is not trauma. If it's trauma, get help for your trauma. Otherwise, you keep seeing errors. You know how we magnify things as individuals. You may have started with something small, but then you leave it there. It's like sweeping dirt under a carpet. We always say that it will destroy the carpet from inside. When people keep anger, stress, what it does, especially for women, when women, usually we always say that it's women like to talk about stuff. But after a while, when a woman has talked, so you know the song, when a woman is fed up, she will just keep quiet. Yeah. When a woman is fed up, or when a man is fed up. So again, this it can change from time to time. The woman can be the one who wants to talk more, the man can also be very, although not very, we don't see that quite a lot. But when people then keep quiet, what of course happens is that you start to secrete a lot of stress hormones, cortisol. And then you start to build up a lot of resentment in your body because you're not letting it out. You keep thinking about the fact that, well, I've said it and nothing has changed. I've said it, nothing has happened. So again, understand that there are detrimental effects for not resolving your conflict. Then, of course, see how best you can resolve your conflict. Some people don't resolve conflict, which is the reason why the issues of conflict keep coming back. You say, but this thing happened yesterday and we didn't talk about it. We skirted around it. Yeah, we danced around it, but we didn't, address what the issues were. So again, be ready to deal with it. It's quite uncomfortable when you need to deal with it, especially when you're cold and you're like a little child that is putting your hand behind your back. But again, this is the one person in the world that you should be
able to be vulnerable.
Yes, naked but not ashamed. So
this vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
I know that for me, it took a while. Because I'll just be saying, you're not vulnerable. I said, I don't understand. You know everything about me. What is this?
What is the
vulnerability?
How
because
do you
as in
achieve this vulnerability?
Because at a point,
some people really don't even know what it is.
I didn't, to be honest. Because I kept feeling like, I'm honest with you. You know everything about me. I tell you everything about me. What's more vulnerable? I mean, what else do you want me to give? Because I remember also one of the issues when everything really got bad was what more do you want from me?
What do you want?
Like what more? Like as in, you say if I talk, I'm talking about this. I'm making it about myself. Okay, I'm not talking. Okay, you understand? Like okay, so what more do you want from me? If there's nothing else I can give, then let me go. It had gotten that bad. I was like, okay, because I couldn't understand. Okay, what else? Like what else? Like so, this vulnerability you guys keep talking about. What is it?
Because, and in this situation, it was the thing that she really needed to talk about. The thing that was really bothering her was something she didn't want to talk about. So she buried that and then focused on everything else.
Yeah.
So it was not like, but everything else is fine. But there's something. Yeah, just not, So how do you get to that point where you realize that, okay, I need to be vulnerable? How am I even going
to access it?
How am I even going to be vulnerable?
So, vulnerability is being able to talk about the elephant in the room, which was what you we're skirting around, but you didn't talk about the
So
issue.
it's not like I really sketched around.
But you didn't talk about
Buried the elephant.
So usually when I get to talk about vulnerability, I also say, there's this saying, I think was it maybe a Paul Coelho that said it, that ships are beautiful in the harbor, but that's not what a ship is beautiful. A ship is supposed to go out.
And
Another thing we
go through
usually,
a storm.
go through it. So another thing we usually say in therapy is, when is a bird most beautiful? Is it when it perches on your roof, perches by your windowsill? No, when it's in full flight. And so vulnerability is about, again, being open, being honest, being naked but not ashamed, and believing that even when you allow yourself, again, it's the highest form of love, self-love, self-care, and self-compassion, because it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. People always think that vulnerability is about weakness, but it's not necessarily about weakness. And so when you allow yourself to be, the other person is able to love you, not because of, but in spite of. So that's what vulnerability is. Just being open, knowing that this is my guy, and this person will always be there for me. This person will not see me as less, will not, interpret that I am less than I am, that I can own up, I can tell them my mistakes, I can show them everything that I am, and they will still love me regardless. And there are people like that. There are relationships like that, and there are unions that have thrived over time because, people have been able to see the worst of themselves. Not because, again, they're going out of their way to intentionally do bad things.
But things are not show you.
But because in their, in their journeys, their marital journeys, they've just decided we will do this together. We will, walk this journey together. We will rough it together, and we'll come out at the other end.
So there's one thing about, and I think it kind of ties in with the vulnerability, and it has to do with fighting fair. So people sometimes can't seem to separate the person from the problem. And because of that, some people will also find it difficult to be vulnerable. So if I show you this part of myself,
you might use it against me,
or you might see me differently,
or reference to it in another quarrel.
And so it is. So how can I show this to you? Because I mean, maybe I'm trying to answer the question in my own. so maybe is it that the person is not self-aware enough to realize that this is who I am, this is who I am. So this person has to either take all of me or not. Or is it just because I just feel it's that not separating self from the issue, the trauma, whatever it is, and then and when there's also conflict, sometimes the other person too can't seem to separate that. So you know that you always do this, as opposed to this always happens. So it's not you do it; it's this happens. Why is it happening? So how do you deal in that kind of?
So I think that in that kind of situation, many things will come to play. Mindset will come to play.
Okay.
Again, you need to discard all that you thought that you knew, or all that you thought this person would bring to you, and deal with the reality on ground.
Okay.
So it's the reality that we're looking at. Excuse me. It's the reality that we're looking at, not necessarily what you've heard, what you've read, what you've seen previously. Then another thing, of course, is that there must also be willingness on the part of both partners. You see, nobody fully arrives. Nobody has it all. Nobody is perfect. Not even me. And so every day I'm constantly reading, upskilling, trying to find how I can be a better version of myself for my own self, first of all, for the relationships I have in my own life, before I even talk about how I can be a better person for the people that I serve with my work. And so partners must also be willing to step back sometimes. You could have labeled one partner, he's the talkative, he's the one that likes to talk. But after a while, even the talkative, says that let this person also talk
as well.
Can't
be only me. Yeah, can't be only me.
Exactly. Let's also see what this person is bringing forth from their own sides as well. So again, there should always be room for growth. When growth happens, both parties are they're happy. You can see the work that you have put in. Again, work. I can't
you can't emphasize it enough.
I can't emphasize it enough. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of interest. It takes a lot of genuineness to say that I have committed to this thing, to this person, and I want to see it work.
Let's
say
sit
lots.
down and think about it. Plenty things to.
I felt like I had another session, and I'm like,
Yeah.
not just like, okay, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Most
Doctor.
welcome. Really,
We
genuinely
we-
appreciate it.
I mean, every interaction with you is always great.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever had a bad interaction with you.
Let us know when it happens.
Yeah. So for people who may be going through things at the moment, for people who may
Need help.
not even, they don't know about therapy, they just hear about therapy for the first time, or they need someone to talk to. How can they reach you? Because we highly recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say something
Okay.
while you were saying that, and I think that it's a good thing that you're doing to highlight, marriages, relationships, and how that there genuinely can be problems. A lot of people have been tied down with, the baggage of what their parents handed over to them, or what they saw, or what, and so you hear a lot of young people these days saying, oh, marriage is not for me, or I'm not going to do it, or if it does like this, if it gives back, I'll give
I'm just gonna go.
But it's worth it.
Yes, it is.
Find yourself first. Love yourself first. Be madly in love with yourself. Because many times you'd also attract the kind of, person that you are. If you have a lot of unsettled issues, you have a lot of baggage that you've not, unpacked, it would show up. No matter how beautifully wrapped trauma is, one day it will tilt over. I had one patient tell me once that, doctor, don't worry about my trauma. I've wrapped it in a very beautiful box. I wrapped it with wrapping paper, and then I just put it in one room. And I said, one day, maybe a smell, maybe a sound, maybe a taste, maybe a touch, maybe a sight would make that box shake like this, and in the room, and then it all comes, pouring out. It's a commitment that everyone should put their time, attention, resources, energy. It's worth it. There's still good marriages.
Yes.
And even the best marriages may go through storms. But you have, like they would always say, two imperfect people trying to make it perfect at the end of the day. So, to reach me,
Yes.
well, again, my name is Gbonjubola Abiri, popularly known as Auntie Ramo.
Yeah.
So you can reach me on Instagram.
Okay.
My handle is Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri on Instagram.
Okay.
On YouTube, it's Mental Health TV with Dr. G. Yeah.
Oh, you actually have a... Okay.
Yes, I do.
I need to subscribe to that.
Professionally, I'm also known as, when I'm in my serious, on LinkedIn as Dr. Gbonjubola Abiri.
All right.
I do offer therapy. You see, a lot of people think that I don't offer therapy.
That was the part I was trying to advertise, that you offer therapy.
I do offer therapy. Even though I always say that I don't see many people. But I do offer therapy.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to, help anyone walk their journeys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the time, and thank you for all the.
Thank you.
Going to
Unpack.
Thank you.
So guys, it's been another phenomenal episode, and I hope that you have at least one thing that you can take away from this. And till another episode, I would like you guys to like, share, subscribe, and if you think you have questions that we didn't touch on, send us an email, hit us up on our Instagram DMs, or leave a comment in the comment section. We love you all, and we want to portray that good marriages still do exist.
Yes.
Until the next time, catch you
later. Welcome to yet another challenge.
Hi.
You and I are going to attempt to stack these cups in a tower while...
So in a tower?
No, in like a... We're going to stack these cups. I can't say stack in a stack. It's weird.
Unstack.
We're not unstacking it because we're still going to stack it. We're just stacking it in a different... We're going to put the cups on top of each other here and balance, while making sure that the balloons stay in the air. If the balloons fall, does that mean I have to start again? Or the person has lost?
Lost.
I see. All right. Ready when you are.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. you guys want me to play?
That's what the million to play.
Why are you playing?
Because I'm done. Oh my god. Here you are, lady. Your balloon. So-
say that this is abuse.
Stack cups. Balloon. Girl.
Please, I'm not doing game again at the end of the show.
It's too late.
I quit.
It's too late.
No, I quit.
It's too late.
You can't be embarrassing me like this.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching me win.
Hey,
Like, subscribe, comment,
I've suffered.
tell us the truth about man versus woman debate. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Wait. Because Robert can't nag.
No?
Okay, not nag, he can talk.
Let's talk about it. Let's address it.
I don't want to talk about it.